Hello all, welcome to the Cessna Centurion by Carenado. This aircraft has been out in Flight Simulator 2024 for a little while now, but this aircraft has been one of the most anticipated for me. Now let me tell you why. So if you think about this aircraft, it's pretty much like your general run-of-the-mill Cessna, albeit turbocharged. However, retractable landing gear make it a little bit nicer for those longer range flights, a bit more fuel economy. So let's talk about what comes with the aircraft. So you get 8 liveries, plus 1 white one. You get an autopilot, you get the retractable landing gear, and you have a snazzy weather radar, which is pretty cool and not something you get on very many aircraft, let alone general aviation. As you can see, the aircraft also does have a very highly detailed cockpit. Seems to be very faithfully recreated. However, I've never set foot in the actual aircraft, so it'd be hard for me to really say for sure. However, there's plenty of knobs and switches for those of you who enjoy switching of knobs and pressing of switches. You can hear when the generators are turned on, there's a nice soundscape. The aircraft does sound pretty nice. Again, it's a very general aviation type aircraft, so they all do sound fairly similar. However, it just sounds that little bit nicer than most of the stock aircraft that are in the sim. Also, props to me for starting this aircraft up without having to even look up a manual. It starts up pretty much the same as any other Cessna type aircraft, albeit a couple of different changes, but it's still very familiar for anyone who's flown the 172 or similar. You can see the attitude indicator does this little dance upon startup for whatever reason. I'm assuming it's just some sort of calibration. One thing to note here is this landing light seems to appear through the propeller. Not quite sure why that happens, but okay. Let's get ourselves in the air anyway. As you can tell, the aircraft does sound very nice. You can even spot the weather radar hanging off the right wing there. I have found that this aircraft does have fairly long takeoff rolls, but it does fly very nicely, as long as you remember that it has a retractable landing gear. A few times I forgot to pull it up. The animation for that's pretty cool though. Big fan of that. I like how one of the wheels comes up last, and it just takes a little bit longer for that to come in. So we're flying around some mountainous areas just now, just getting a nice look around the outside of the aircraft. I must admit that the aircraft does have a really, really nice external view. It looks great from outside. Seems to go well with this type of scenery as well. You could imagine this aircraft probably flying around this type of area. Like I said, that retractable landing gear just makes it look that much nicer. You can see my character is dressed up in some sort of really old clothing for another video I've been working on for a while, but kind of slacking on. More to come on that at some point in the future. The camera views that are built into the aircraft as default, pretty nice. You've got this like under the wing type look, which makes it a lot nicer for scenic views of mountain valleys and such. But these camera views do make the aircraft just look that much nicer. It's great that they've included all these sort of default views within it already, because sometimes it's not the best for some aircraft, and it's always nice to have plenty of options. For when you're flying around, you want to look around. Another great view, looking back towards the valley we've just flown through. You can see the road running right along in the middle of it. And we're going to follow that road all the way back to the airport in just a moment. been very impressed with this aircraft so far. It does seem to perform pretty well. If you don't take the landing gear up though, it's going to struggle a little bit. So you would think that maybe it would fly a little easier even with the landing gear out. But once you get it retracted and once you get flying along in a nice straight line and build up a bit of speed, aircraft handles very well. And I must say, I'm very happy with this aircraft. If you've tried out the aircraft, I'd like to know what your thoughts are. There's probably a lot more people who are a bit more familiar with this type of aircraft and can probably give slightly better opinion, but from the average sim enjoyer's point of view, very happy with it. Now with that nice smooth touchdown, it's time for final thoughts on the aircraft. I highly recommend this aircraft for anyone who likes general aviation, like myself. I'm probably more into these types of aircraft than airliners because they're a bit more complicated. This has got a nice autopilot, it's pretty easy to use, pretty easy to set up. If you're familiar with like the Porter, it's very similar to that, and it's got plenty of features. It's nice to have the retractable landing gear. The audio sounds great. I love the sound that the flaps make as they are retracted or extended, and also when the gear's going up and down as well. It's pretty easy to fly, so if you've ever flown a 172 or such, you'll probably find it very familiar. So yeah, I would highly recommend getting this aircraft if you haven't picked it up. Anyway, that's all from me. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next video.